the jousting sequences are filled with explosive, splintering lance impacts that still hold up remarkably well today. And the secret behind achieving that effect is almost laughably simple. Early in production, the filmmakers reportedly considered using computer-generated effects for the shattering lances, but the visual effects technology available at the time couldn't convincingly replicate the fast, chaotic burst of splintering wood in a way that looked real. So instead, the crew built the lances out of lightweight balsa wood designed to break easily, and packed the hollow centers with dry, uncooked spaghetti. When the lances shattered on impact during filming, the pasta inside snapped and scattered outward, convincingly mimicking realistic wooden splinters on camera for a fraction of the cost and effort that digital effects would have required. Not every dramatic moment captured in the jousting scenes was actually planned or scripted. During one high-speed tournament sequence, a stunt rider was reportedly struck in the head by part of a breaking lance during an unplanned collision. Filming paused immediately while the crew rushed to check on him, and thankfully, he turned out not to be seriously injured after being examined. When the filmmakers later reviewed the footage from that take, they realized the impact looked so strikingly authentic and visceral that they ultimately decided to leave it in the final film rather than attempt to safely recreate the same moment through additional takes. Because genuine full-speed jousting is an incredibly rare and specialized skill, the production reportedly had a difficult time finding enough qualified riders to fill out the tournament scenes. Most of the people eventually brought in to perform the action came not from traditional stunt backgrounds, but from Renaissance fair circuits and historical reenactment groups, where this kind of horseback combat is practiced as a hobby or specialty. Because there were so few genuinely qualified riders available, at least one performer reportedly ended up playing several different nights throughout the film, simply by switching armor, colors, and positioning between scenes, something most viewers never noticed while watching. Away from the cameras, Heath Ledger reportedly showed a quieter, far more personal side of himself during production that many people only learned about years later. When Alan Tudyk received devastating news about the unexpected death of a close friend while the cast was filming in Prague, far from home, Ledger and co-star Heather Graham reportedly stepped in to support him during that difficult time, checking in regularly and making sure he wasn't left isolated while grieving. It wasn't something done for publicity or attention, just a genuine, private act of care between castmates that Tudyk later said meant a great deal to him during one of the hardest periods of his life. A Knight's Tale also became entangled, somewhat unexpectedly, in one of the era's biggest advertising controversies in Hollywood. Sony Pictures was eventually caught using fabricated critic quotes to promote several of its theatrical releases, including this one, attributing glowing, enthusiastic reviews to a completely fictional critic named David Manning, who didn't actually exist anywhere in real journalism. When investigative journalists eventually exposed the scheme to the public, it sparked significant media backlash and legal consequences for the studio, becoming one of the more infamous marketing scandals in modern Hollywood history. And A Knight's Tale ended up caught right in the middle of that fallout. Finally, two unexpected discoveries from this cast quietly went on to much bigger things later in their careers. Shannon Sossamon, who played Jocelyn, wasn't a working actress with years of experience or a long resume when she landed the role. She was reportedly discovered at a party in Los Angeles while working as a model and DJ, with very little formal acting training to her name at the time, and that chance encounter eventually turned into a leading role opposite Heath Ledger in a major studio film. And in a small supporting part as one of Jocelyn's attendants, French actress Bérénice Bejo made her American film debut years before later earning an Academy Award nomination for her work in The Artist. A quiet reminder of just how unpredictable the path to recognition in this industry can really be. From secret casting battles and tense studio standoffs to spaghetti-powered special effects and an entire pirate sequel that never managed to set sail, A Knight's Tale had a far messier and more chaotic journey to the screen than most fans ever realized while watching it. Somehow, all of that behind-the-scenes chaos and last-minute decision-making came together to create one of the most beloved and rewatchable medieval movies ever made. Which one of these facts surprised you the most? Let us know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes movie secrets. Many of the local extras brought in to fill out the tournament stands didn't actually speak English, which became a real problem during Chaucer's big, energetic hype-up introduction, speech meant to whip the crowd into cheers. Instead of erupting in applause as scripted, the crowd just stood there in confused silence, unsure of when they were supposed to react. Mark Addy, playing Roland, broke the awkward pause by suddenly shouting out an enthusiastic cheer of his own, which finally gave the extras a clear visual cue to follow and triggered the crowd reaction the scene needed. The filmmakers liked the spontaneous, slightly chaotic energy of the moment, so much that they decided to keep that exact take in the final cut. There's also a subtle visual joke tucked into the armor that Kate the blacksmith builds for William partway through the film. If you look closely at the maker's mark she stamps into the metal as a personal signature, it resembles two upside-down swoosh shapes placed together, an unmistakable visual nod to a well-known athletic brand. The reference was reportedly intentional on the part of the filmmakers, and the production apparently had to seek clearance afterward to use a design so closely resembling it. The company was said to be good-natured about the whole thing, which only added to the joke once people later pointed out the added irony that the brand's co-founder happened to share a surname with the word Knight. Off-camera, several cast members built real, lasting friendships well before filming even officially started, and that genuine chemistry shows up clearly on screen throughout the movie. Heath Ledger reportedly arrived early in Prague, quickly found the city affordable and lively, and encouraged castmates like Mark Addy and Alan Tudyk to join him ahead of the official schedule. What was originally supposed to be weeks of intensive horseback riding and combat training apparently turned into plenty of late nights exploring the city together instead. Those informal off-screen bonds between the cast translated directly into the natural, easy camaraderie audiences see between William, Roland, Wat, and Chaucer throughout the film. The emotional church scene between William and Jocelyn was filmed under serious financial and scheduling pressure behind the scenes. The location itself was extremely expensive to operate, and with production already running behind schedule, every additional hour on set meant real budget strain for the studio. Rather than shooting the conversation from multiple angles with separate reaction shots, as would normally be standard, Helgeland made the bold and risky call to film the entire exchange in a single continuous take. That decision required Ledger and Shannon Sossamon to rehearse extensively and nail the emotional rhythm of the scene in one uninterrupted pass, with no safety net of additional coverage. The risk ultimately paid off, and the scene remains one of the film's most quietly powerful and memorable moments. At the height of his fame from The Drew Carey Show, and whose line is it anyway, Carey had exactly the kind of instant name recognition studios typically love attaching to a big comedic role. Helgeland worried, though, that casting such a recognizable television personality would pull audiences out of the medieval setting and remind them too strongly of modern sitcom comedy, rather than letting them stay immersed in the story. He pushed for a lesser-known actor instead, arguing for tone over star power, which eventually led the studio back around to considering Bedney. Daniel Craig, long before he ever became James Bond, actually auditioned for the role of Count Hedhemer, the film's central antagonist. Helgeland reportedly praised his intensity, confidence, and natural screen presence during the audition, noting that Craig clearly had the authority needed for the villain. But a practical problem came up during the casting process. Craig and Ledger had fairly similar physical features and coloring, and the filmmakers worried that audiences might have trouble visually distinguishing hero from villain during fast-paced action scenes. That concern is part of why the role ultimately went to Rufus Sewell instead, whose darker, sharper features created a much clearer visual contrast against Ledger on screen. Sewell's own path to playing Hedhemer is its own strange and almost accidental story. Years before A Knight's Tale was even in development, he had auditioned for Helgeland for a completely different project, and, almost as an afterthought, asked if he could also read for the villain role in that earlier project, even though the part had technically already been cast. His performance in that audition reportedly stuck with Helgeland for years afterward, and when A Knight's Tale finally came together, the director remembered that old audition and reached out to bring Sewell in directly rather than running an open search. One of the film's funniest crowd moments almost completely fell apart during filming on location in the Czech Republic.